Alright guys, now we're gonna hop in the virtual space. So I'm gonna show you how to get into Tinkercad and how to navigate through the virtual environment. One of the things that I'm strongly gonna recommend you get before you get started is a mouse. This mouse is gonna help you navigate through the virtual environment a lot better than a trackpad would. So let's hop into it.
Alright, we got a box in there, and we're going to go to the bottom right of the screen, and we're going to say we're going to want to edit the grid. When we edit the grid, we're going to change the size of our drawing grid to match the printer that we're using. So my printer, I'm using a Robo 3D, so I'm going to change the width to 225 millimeters and the height to 200, and that's a custom measurement. So you'll also see a few other options, but it's not super important. So another thing we're going to see is the snap grid. We can change this to be small at 0.1 or 1, or even we can change it to large at 5 millimeters. So what happens then is when you move your object, it will snap every 5 millimeters if that's what you have the setting to. So you'll see every time I move it, it snaps to 5. And if I change that, I can change it down to 1 millimeter. And now I can move it every time I move it. It can move in increments of 1 millimeter. So it makes it a lot more accurate than 5. And then we can also make it 0.1 millimeters. So you can see I can move it very, 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 very small numbers. So it just depends on how accurate you want to be. There's always a time and place to use each of these, and you'll learn when is the right time. So you'll see when I drag the white button on the top, it allows me to make the box bigger or smaller by increments of 1 millimeter. We can then change it to 5 millimeters, and it will allow us to move. If we drag the arrow, it will move the box up or down in increments of 5. So you'll see that however much we have that grid option affects how we manipulate the shapes. So you'll see when I'm down to 1 millimeter, I can make it bigger or smaller by increments of 1 millimeter. So it's very important. It can come in very handy as you keep progressing through. So you'll see when I drag that far button, I didn't really mean to grab that one, but it'll change in both the X and Y direction 1 millimeter. So I'll hit the undo button, but another way to hit the undo button on your keyboard is if you're on a PC, you can hit the control button and the Z button, or if you're on a Mac, you can hit the command Z. That will undo the last command that you did. So I'll just orbit to the side here, and I'm going to change the size of this box one more time. So this is actually going to be the box that we're going to use at the beginning of our next lesson. So we're going to make it 20 millimeters by 40 millimeters. So we're also going to then change the height down to 15 millimeters. So you could have done that by increments of 5 or increments of 1. I did it with increments of 1. So next, we'll insert a round roof, and we're just going to start playing with all of the objects. So you see I have the same option, the top manipulation button to make it taller or shorter. I can also grab these corner option boxes to make it bigger, fatter, wider, thinner, however you'd like. So we'll just progress through each of these commands. So with the roof command, you can make it taller or smaller, just the same as the rest. And we can make it longer or wider with the other option boxes. So with the sphere, we can make that sphere, instead of being perfectly round, we can change and manipulate the way that that sphere looks to make it look pretty cool. So you can see all of these different shapes have the same principle. You can make it taller or wider or have a longer length. So you just play around with each of these. You'll see as I progress how each of them work, and that'll give you a good idea on how you're going to use them. So you can see that makes that shape look pretty darn funny. And then so we got a half sphere that will make smaller. You can make it taller. And then we can also change the, we'll add a pyramid in. And again, same thing, taller, wider, longer, however you'd like to make it. It's entirely up to you. And this is just going to take some practice. So just hop inside and start tossing around shapes, manipulating them, and don't really try to design anything. Just try to learn how all these shapes work. So this is the torus, and it's an interesting shape because we can make it look like a bracelet. We could make it look like a ring. It's an interesting shape. The last one I'm going to show you is the paraboloid. The paraboloid. We're going to use this one in the butt lesson. So the paraboloid, you can make it taller, wider. So that's all the basic shapes that you're going to need to know how to use. And they all have the same principles. So give it a shot, have some fun, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Awesome work, guys. In the next lesson, we're going to discover how to move and change objects and where they are in the virtual space. Next lesson, we're going to learn how to orbit. Awesome work, guys.